Okay, today's topic is big. We're covering sleep. Whether you're expecting or have a newborn or already into the toddler years, figuring out how to get your kid to sleep well and sleep through the night can sometimes feel like such a big mystery. Today's guest, Desiree Baird, is a pediatric sleep coach and a mom of 3. She's here to give us the inside track on what good sleep looks like, how to get there, and if you need it, where to find help to make sure everyone in the family, including you, is able to get that much, much needed rest. This is Getting Started with Baby, the podcast that brings you practical tips, loved products, and lived experience from parents who've been there. Brought to you by thestarterset.com, an upcoming service focused on helping parents find just the right things at the right time, personalized for their families. I'm your host, Jane Deshefsky, a mom on the other side of 2 under 2. I'm still actively figuring all this out, and I'm bringing you perspectives from across the parenting spectrum. Let's get into it. All right, well, we are so excited to talk about this topic today because, not to do a mom joke here, but obviously sleep keeps parents up at night. Everyone has questions about it, whether they have an infant or a toddler. I don't know what happens after toddlerhood, but I'm sure you still have questions. So welcome, Desiree. We're so excited to talk to you.
Thank you for having me.
To get started, could you share a little bit about your background and your experience?
Sure. I'm a pediatric sleep coach. I work with families virtually. I've been doing this for 8 years now. I was certified as a sleep coach or sleep consultant formally in 2017. I also have a set of twins and I have a third child. He's now 8 years old, and that's why I fell into the sleep world by mistake. The twins are the reason why I got interested in sleep to begin with. And my third pregnancy ignited that flame again because I didn't want to go through that, I wouldn't say trauma, but the mystery of trying to figure it out like I did the first time around.
How did you get into sleep coaching? You mentioned it was a little bit by accident, but I'm fascinated.
Yes. So I had my twins in 2008. I'm from Pennsylvania, so I had little support here in Washington. My husband was busy working to support the family. We went from 0 to 2 very quickly. And so he was traveling 3 to 4 days a week with his position. The first couple months, just your typical wake up feed, just like your normal, I think every 3 hours. So I was used to the exhaustion, but they were napping pretty well the first couple months. And then when they hit 3 to 4 months, as I would like to say, they came out of that 4th trimester and they became alive and stopped napping for me, and everything was a mess. And I remember contacting my pediatrician and thinking there was something wrong because they weren't sleeping anymore, and their sleep got really, really bad around 4 months. And hence the 4-month sleep regression. And I remember my pediatrician just kind of wrote me off, and it wasn't intentional. She just was confused. She's like, you just pick up a couple times a day, put them down for a nap, and that's it. And I go, well, that's not just it. That's not working. And I have 2 babies, and I had one that slept better than the other. So he was kind of the go with the flow child, but my daughter was definitely not like that. And it was overwhelming. I was by myself a lot, sometimes 4 nights in a row, and handling all days and nights, and going from having a full-time career to taking care of twins, infants. So what I did was I took charge of it. There was no such thing as a sleep coach at the time or sleep consultant. And I remember saying to my husband, I wish there was, but there wasn't that I could find. So I started doing the research on my own. I purchased a book, and I wasn't crazy over his methods, but I liked his sleep science behind it. It's Dr. Weiss. He has a book that I really liked because at the end of each chapter, he summarized what was normal for sleep at each age. I just honed in on sleep, and the twins were sleeping through the night on their own at 5 months without any sleep training. 8 years later, and I was pregnant with my third child, and I just remembered the hardest part for me as a mom, which it's different for every mom, was the sleep aspect, because I needed some time for me to take a shower, to eat. So I saw that there was a sleep certification course, and I took it for myself so that I can give myself like a refresher course. So I was ready for this third child that was coming our way, because I was essentially starting over again, because my twins were 8 years old, almost 9 whenever I had him. So took that course, fell in love with it, applied all the concepts I learned to him. And I'm not saying that this is normal, because every child has their own normal, but by the time he was, 2 months, he was sleeping through the night. I started my own business in 2017, and the rest is history.
That's an amazing story, and sounds so tough in those early days, trying to balance not only one kid's sleep schedule, which is in itself overwhelming, but two infant sleep schedules.
And they were very different. My son was high needs and my daughter was low needs. So it was hard on the same schedule, but it didn't always work out that way. So I had to learn to have some flexibility.
What was that aha moment for you with the kids? You mentioned like letting the kids take the lead. What does that actually look like in practice?
From my research, I knew what they were capable of, but I let them take the lead. So if they were truly hungry, let's just say they went to bed at 7 and they woke up at 10 o'clock, I knew they weren't hungry at 10 o'clock based on their age and what they should be doing. So I didn't necessarily just go feed them right away, at 10 o'clock. Taking the lead, meaning I knew what they should be doing at least 6 hours before having a feed. So I made sure I didn't feed them until that 6-hour mark if they were truly hungry. And then I also let them wean off on their feeds on their own. So in terms of sleeping through the night, they just start doing it on their own, and they eliminate their feeds together. And then working on that sleep schedule. So naps, I would say, didn't get completely better until they were about 7 months old. That's whenever I noticed that my daughter just didn't need as much sleep as my son. And it took time. It took about 3 months for me to really figure that out and go, oh, maybe that's because she isn't ready, her twin brother is, to go down for a nap yet. So I just started experimenting and realizing that she just had different sleep needs than him, and had to accept that they were on similar schedules, but not on the exact same schedule. And then that's what ended up working for them.
That's such an interesting story about the waking up, whatever it is, a couple of hours after you put the kid down, and you know that they should be sleeping through the night. And it's kind of confusing. I remember going through that exact same thing with my son, and we thought, oh, well, we're in a time zone difference. We've just been traveling. Like maybe he is hungry. And then I had to discover, wait. He can sleep through the night. What am I doing? But yeah, it's so easy to fall into that trap, right?
Because it is natural. You just panic. You hear your baby crying, you run in, and then you naturally go to feeding. And that's not what you should naturally go with. There's different times at the nighttime where brief arousals happen, because the child and all humans, the deepest part of the sleep is the beginning of the night. So usually around that 3-hour mark is whenever they're going from the deep sleep to a more lighter sleep phase. And many babies wake up at that 3-hour mark. Parents mistake it as needing to eat, but it truly typically is not, unless they're a newborn or they're 2 months old. That would make sense. But if your child is 4, 5, 6, 7 months old and waking up at that 3-hour mark, that's typically because they're coming up out of deep sleep into a lighter form of sleep, and they either haven't learned how to self-soothe yet, or you're just rushing to them immediately, or maybe there's something wrong with their schedule. Something else is going on from them not being able to transition from that deeper sleep to a lighter sleep.
Absolutely. That makes sense. And it's so powerful to have that knowledge, because obviously if you're woken up from a sleep as well as a parent, it's hard to stop and think, what's going on here? What does good sleep for children and parents actually look like?
Yeah, so good sleep is, whether parents like to hear this or not, is about being on routines. The body functions its best when it's on a routine. Of course, there's those children that can go with the flow, those sleepy unicorns that you hear about, that can sleep on the go and just sleep anywhere where they want and sleep 12 hours a night, but that's not the norm. Depending on the age of your baby, the norm is typically anywhere from 10 and a half hours to 11 and a half hours, unless they're a newborn. They might be able to sleep 12 hours at night, but typically that's not the norm. The also norm is that your baby needs structure. That's your body functions, again, on its best when it has routine. So when it's in the same sleep space, when they're going down at the same times every day, when they're going to bed around the same time every day. So not necessarily always wake windows. A lot of parents follow wake windows, and it's good to a certain point. But once a baby gets to a certain age, wake windows really isn't the best way to go, because depending on their naps, their bedtime can fluctuate by 2 hours, if they have a bad nap day. So that's what good sleep looks like. Another thing that's important is not just the quantity of hours, but the quality of sleep. So if your child is snoring, even an adult, we should never normalize snoring. If your child is sick with a cold, I understand that because they're stuffy. Your child and you should be pretty much still. So you shouldn't be moving around all over the place. So silent and still, and with mouth closed posture is typically the best quality of sleep.
If there is sound or movement, what does that say?
So that's whenever I start diving deeper. Does the child have reflux that could be causing some hoarseness in their voice? Do they have environmental allergies that's causing their nose to be stuffy, so therefore they're having an airway restriction? Do they have a tonsil and adenoid issue? Do they have tetraoral ties, like a tongue tie, a lip tie, that's causing them to not be able to keep their mouth closed? Are they 1 year old and still using a pacifier? Because pacifiers can cause issues with airways. The tongue should be at the very top of the mouth, and it helps form the palate. But if it's at the bottom of the mouth, maybe it has low tone. If your baby had a pacifier for maybe their first 2 years, possibly their tongue is not strong enough to go and reach the roof of the mouth. And that could be a low tone tongue that's causing your baby to leave their mouth open or not have proper sleep posture. When I'm on my discovery calls with my clients, I explore all of this before taking on a client. I work on the foundations first. So I need to make sure that your child is in a good spot before we start changing habits. And that is by ruling out some of those medical issues that could be causing poor sleep.
I heard you mention a couple of times foundations of sleep. What does that mean? What are the foundations of sleep?
Yeah, so foundations are making sure your child has the right room environment, making sure they don't have no underlying medical issues, making sure that their feeds are during the day and not always at nighttime. So for example, I have a new client that came to me, we're going to have to reverse that cycle of feeds. So making sure that we're doing feeds at proper times, or at least trying to reverse that feeding pattern. Making sure that we're eliminating sleep props. So if a baby is nursing to sleep, we need to take that out of the equation before we do any sleep training. Schedule's a big one. So doing those type of foundations are important, and also grounding the parents. So that sounds funny, but a lot of parents are triggered very easily with crying. And I try to eliminate crying, but your baby might cry even if you stop nursing to sleep and only rock them to sleep. They still might cry because of the change. So making sure that I'm grounding the parents to preparing them for sleep training or the changes that your little one's going through. So that's a foundation as well, is making sure that the parents are 110% ready to make those changes. Knowing that we can support our children as we're making those changes, but sometimes we can't control crying. Even if we're going from nursing to rocking to sleep, your baby might cry because of the change.
That's such a good point, because I know a lot of parents, even when we talk about the term sleep training, that concept can be hard because of crying, right? And, parents do struggle with not reacting to crying, or they see crying as a need not being met. What would you say to parents in that situation?
Well, you can react to your children. I don't want you not reacting to your children. I want you to go to them and pick them up and give them comfort. But I tell parents that crying is a form of communication. Your child might be just frustrated because you're going from nursing to rocking to sleep. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're in any pain. They're not in any physical pain. They're upset at the change because they're just so used to being nursed to sleep. So I'm just giving you an example. That's a perfect example, because I get a lot of babies that are being nursed to sleep, and they will cry because of the change, but we're still fully supporting them by rocking them to sleep. So we're changing one sleep prop for another, but then eventually, sometimes you have to take 3 steps backwards to go forward. So yeah, rocking to sleep is a step backward, but we're actually making progress because we're eliminating that nursing to sleep. I'll give you another example. Actually, this is a perfect one that happened recently. I have a baby that's 13 months old, and we just finally started the sleep training portion this week. Baby was co-sleeping with mom and dad. And he wasn't feeding at nighttime, in fact, at all, because he was 13 months and he never had that issue. But he was so used to being in mom and dad's room and co-sleeping, and he did not even like being in his room. So we worked on those foundations first of just getting him used to being in his room. And then we had dad sleep in the room for a while. Because it took a couple weeks of him just getting used to everything and us doing communication. And we started sleep training on Sunday night, and it took 7 minutes and he went right to sleep.
I think that opens up so many fascinating other questions that I would have. I mean, one just being, obviously, there are a lot of like loaded terms and perspectives and philosophies around sleep, you know, whether it's co-sleeping or the concept of sleep training. Parents have a very strong perspective on sleep. How do you think about that?
It's up to them, whatever works for their family. But if a
Mhm.
family wants to have independent sleep, that's when they come to me. So it's judgment free. If someone wants to co-sleep for with their children from day one, I mean, I hope that they do it safely. That's the most important thing. And I would imagine the pediatrician would feel the same way. As long as you're following co-sleep safe guidelines, then totally fine. It's really up to the family and what works for them. But families that come to me are typically at the point where they don't want to co-sleep anymore. Either one, they're not getting good sleep even though they're co-sleeping. Two, they realize the baby and them are not getting good sleep even though co-sleeping. Or there's some other reason that they just realize, you know what, now it's time to go ahead and make this change.
Yeah. So, especially with the big transitions from they were doing one thing, they're doing another thing. I think sometimes I've heard parents express that they feel like they've missed the boat when it
Yeah.
comes to sleep, right? Whatever their family has gotten into, they don't know how to get out of it now. Is there a too late?
Never too late. We might have to take a different approach. It might take a little bit
Mhm.
longer, but never too late. I work with 3, 4, 5-year-olds that were used to co-sleeping through the night, since day one, and we work on independent sleep. I have one family that they're based in New York. They wanted to have another baby, but they had a 2.5-year-old that was in their bed with them, and also nursing through the night. So using mom as a human pacifier still at 2.5 years old. And they were like, how are we going to make a new baby? Well, it took about a month, but we got that 2.5-year-old sleeping in his own room, napping in his own rooms, and they were able to get pregnant again.
So what should parents expect if they're trying to make a big change like that? I assume not an overnight change, right?
No, 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 no. Well, it depends on the child and how they react to. So every case is different that I work with, but I put together a plan for parents. So it's strategic. We might do this for step one, and then we add on goals. We layer on different goals week by week or even every 5 days, depending on how the child responds. So nothing is instant. But that's not how little humans work. Sometimes we take 3 steps back before we go, another step forward, because you have to see how the child reacts before you move forward. And sleep just takes time, especially new routines. When it comes to a schedule, it takes a good 7 to 10 days for a child to get used and to adapt to a new schedule. So it's really personalized in terms of what the issue is and what we're trying to solve. Most of my packages are 3 to 4 weeks because it takes time. If it's a nap transition, I have a 2-week package because, like I said, it takes about 7 to 10 days for that new schedule to really take place. So I like to stay there for the duration of that whole time whenever we're making a change to a schedule.
You obviously went through that experience with your kids as well, of having kind of one experience with your twins, a different experience with your younger kid. What is the advice that you would give to a new mom? You have a fresh slate. How do you set yourself up for success?
Just go with the flow. I mean, your baby's fresh. Enjoy those snuggles. You can't spoil a newborn. Just enjoy that newborn as much as you possibly can. After a month, start doing something simple like adding a bedtime routine, something just small. If possible, try to keep your baby in the crib or bassinet instead of automatically co-sleeping. Maybe there's something else with your little one that's going on. And the reason why I say that is not because of independent sleep, but more because of safety. You want to make sure that your baby is in a safe space and you're not going to be so tired that the baby falls off the bed or something else happens. I wouldn't do it right away, but within a month or two, you want to start implementing some things like bedtime routines, maybe a little bit of a schedule. So not super rigid, but a little bit of a schedule. Maybe waking the baby up at the same time every day, so that schedule can start evolving. Also trying to resolve day-night confusion if your baby has it, like doing that, as well. So that would be some of my tips in the beginning.
And if someone did want to work with a sleep coach, what should they expect from that experience or working with you? What does that process look like in the beginning?
What it looks like is they have a discovery call with me so that I can rule out underlying medical issues and make sure that they're a good candidate and a good fit to work with me. And also to make sure I'm answering all their questions. So, one thing I tell parents is you have to be 110% ready to work on sleep. So that means no traveling during this time. I need you to focus on it. If you have a daycare, the daycare needs to be agreeing to it as well, because I don't want you to waste your money and time on my services unless you're going to be able to focus on it as well. I want the best for my clients. So I know that I can't do my job and get success unless I'm able to focus on sleep at that point. Once a client signs on with me, they get an onboarding guide and they have to start tracking sleep and doing a couple other little things so I can get some background. And then from there, I create a plan for them. So it's just a brief outline. When we get on our first call, I go over that outline with the parents. This is what's going on. This is what we're going to work on. We're going to do it over a period of 3 to 4 weeks, depending on the package that they have. And then I start setting that goals and also setting realistic expectations. Like, your baby might only need 3 days to get used to these goals, but they might need 7. So let's just see what happens. We're going to stay in close contact, because if they're responding in 3 days, then we're going to layer new goals in right away while we're just jumping on that success train. But if it takes them 7 days, that's okay as well, because every child is different. And then I do email support every day. So it doesn't mean that I check in every day. It means that the parents have me to access every day. Although if I don't hear from a parent and it's been 2 or 3 days and it's been radio silent, I will check it at that point in time. We do weekly calls typically, depending on the package they purchase, so that we can go over, okay, yep, here's our checklist. We went over, we accomplished this, and this. I'm a big checklist person. So I go over and I check off what we achieved, and then we go, okay, you ready to move forward? And if mom and dad say yes, then we go ahead and move forward. And then by the time our time is up together, I want parents to feel fully supported all the way through toddlerhood and beyond. So I have a group called the Sleep Elite Group, and it's part of my premium package so that parents can reach out to me at any point in time, because I was finding that parents would work with me and then they'd come back to me 6 months later because they traveled or because something else was going on. And then we needed to fine tune and buckle things up again.
I think that's such an important expectation to also set, that there may be bumps, right?
Always.
Routines change, schedules, you travel,
Illness,
time difference, illness.
Even milestones can cause bumps in the road. But then once you get through those milestones, things go right back to normal. So
Absolutely. Well, switching gears a little bit, one of the things that we do with the starter set, which sponsors this podcast, is that we try to help parents sort through all of the product noise that's out there. And so I'm super interested to know, as a sleep coach, as a mom, is there anything that you swear by in terms of products that help with good sleep practices?
Okay, so I have to say less is best. It drives me crazy having all of these products out there. What I will say is I would invest in a good sound machine. My favorite one is the one by Yoga Sleep. It was owned by a company called Marpac. It was built in the 1960s, and it looks like it was built in the 1960s. It's simple design. There's a fan inside of it. That is the best sound machine on the market. It's the best. So that's my favorite. A good swaddle. There's lots of swaddles I like. One of my favorites is the Love the Dream swaddle. And that's because the natural way a baby should sleep is with arms up. And the Love the Dream allows the baby to have their arms up, and then they're able to have access to their hands. Even though it's through the swaddle, they can suck on the material. It's not going to hurt them. But a baby self-soothes by sucking, and by sucking their hands is very common. I would also invest in good blackout blinds. Dark room is the best. It helps the pineal gland produce melatonin. Adults and most children need darkness for that pineal gland to kick in the melatonin to fall asleep.
What about things that you think are probably unnecessary that sometimes parents are getting?
Okay, so unnecessary is, I know everybody wants good sleep, but the snoo is, I work with so many clients that have to get their baby out of the snoo. Yes, babies like motion, and that's what the snoo provides, but it's also, you have to get, your baby's going to grow and it's just a temporary Band-Aid. So it might last for 12 weeks, 16 weeks, but you eventually have to have your baby out of that SNU. And it is a struggle for some babies getting out of. I know a lot of people love it, but I also have a lot of clients that come to me because of it. So that's one product for sure that I just don't think is necessary. Just because technology evolves doesn't mean that humans' needs evolve for sleep. So the SNU is one of them. The Merlin suit, absolutely, and weighted suits, absolutely a big no in my book. One, it's considered a container, just like the SNU, because you're strapped in, and it can cause torticollis, it can cause flat head, and it can also cause problems with milestones, so meeting milestones. So those are big things that I say absolutely no to. Your baby should have room to roll whenever they're ready to roll. They should be able to move around because, again, that flat head or that torticollis can occur from being in the same spot all the time. Mobiles are obviously nice to have and they look cute, but I want the room, unfortunately, to be as boring as possible because they can also be too stimulating for your baby. So if you're going to have a mobile, maybe do it over the changing station. So when you're changing a diaper, you have something above them that it can distract them. But for sleep, I typically do not like that. So that's a big no for me as well. Pacifiers are great the first 6 months, but the AAP recommends eliminating it at 12 months. I recommend eliminating it anytime between 6 and 10 months. The longer your baby has it, the longer or the harder it is for them to eliminate it. If we're going to sleep train and it's causing more problems than good, if the child can't put it in their mouth on their own, then we eliminate it pretty quickly as well. So I am not against pacifiers, but I'm not pro pacifier after a certain point because it can cause problems with the palate and it can cause problems with the tongue. The tongue's pinned down instead of being able to hit the roof of the mouth. So there's a time and a place for the pacifier. So those early months, absolutely, but it's not something you want to keep.
This has been super fascinating. It's made me reflect on my own kids' sleep journeys. If there was one thing you wanted parents to take away from this, what would it be?
One takeaway would be that every baby is different and to be patient. Well, I had to learn it the hard way with twins. Like I said, one needs more sleep than the other. They're 17 years old and they are still very different when it comes to sleep. Be patient. If you need help, reach out to someone like me. Don't compare to your friend Sally down the road who has a baby that's sleeping 12 hours a night and 4 hours during the day. Maybe your baby's perfectly healthy and only needs 11 hours at night and 3.5 hours during the day. Because there's a variation, there's a wide range of what's normal, and it all depends on what your baby needs specifically.
That just sums up the challenge, right? It's so hard to know what's normal in your baby.
So if you are doubting yourself, or if you're feeling that your little one's not getting enough sleep, or you're frustrated because they're not sleeping at certain times, there's people like me out there that can help.
And that is such a comfort and such a great way to cap it off. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been so interesting. And like I said, it definitely has made me reflect on my own sleep journey and about some things that I might need around here, like blackout blinds.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
To hear more from Desiree or get in contact, check out pediatricsleepcoach.com. You can find the link in the episode notes. To keep up to date on our episodes, follow this podcast or find us on Instagram at The Starter Set. Know someone who would love the episode? Pass it on. Thank you for listening. Till next time.